Hello and welcome to this shorter summary, or perhaps probably a longer one actually. We are going to be going over the tornado outbreak and derecho of December 15th, 2021. This event was pretty unusual, as this one is going to be a little bit more derecho focused rather than tornado focused. We had 120 tornadoes in just under 8 hours, just under, as in like 7 hours, 56 minutes, according to the Wikipedia for this outbreak. Take that as you will. I'm going to say just in under 8 hours, we had 33 out of 120 tornadoes be significant, significant being EF2 and above. The Storm Prediction Center, SPC, clocked in 64 wind reports. This is going to come in later at the significance. Wind reports are going to be those, or at least most were I think they actually have to be, rather, I think they have to be above hurricane force or greater. So 74, 75 miles per hour and above for it to be a wind report. 84 million people were placed under high winds warnings. A high wind warning is something not usually seen. And for this large of amount of people to be placed under such a warning is extremely uncommon. Due to these high winds, as well as just, over 100 tornadoes that touched down, over 600,000 people lost power. Around half of those people would actually have power in the next day or two after this event, thankfully, if I'm not mistaken. This event caused 5 deaths, 5 tornadic deaths, as well as 2 non-direct deaths, and I was unable to find an amount of people injured, but this event caused $1.8 billion in damage. Last thing here is that the bottom right, we have this moderate risk. That was pretty scary and definitely not a welcome sight after seeing just a few days ago further south another moderate risk. Thankfully, though, this was more wind driven and not more tornado prone. Due to this event being so odd, I absolutely want to go over the meteorology of this event. We had temperatures over at or over 40 degrees Fahrenheit above average. This means that some temperatures were into the 60s Fahrenheit, or some were even clocking into the 70s Fahrenheit. The Cape was around 500 to 1,000 joules per kilogram, which is definitely right around the mark for a squall or derecho event. Thankfully, not as much as your typical tornadic event. We also had some pretty bad cap erosion as this line was moving in, the beginning of which we see at this tornado warning image here. And obviously, the cap is the one thing that helps inhibit storm development, and so when that erodes, you're going to have explosive storm development. Speaking of that tornado watch, this thing is a very large one and was the first one issued of the day at 13:20, so 1:20 Central Daylight Time, and would last until 8 p.m. One key thing here, though, we only have 3 notables, by the way, was that the derecho is moving so fast that the tornadoes couldn't strengthen all that much. What I mean is that there was such high air resistance and drag, so to speak, if I'm speaking correctly, that they couldn't spin up probably as much as they might have if this possibly was a slower moving event. And this has to do with the way that when something is rotating, it is inevitably going to be going again, and it's also moving in a certain direction. So let's say just to the northeast, and tornadoes spin counterclockwise. So if you're looking at a tornado from bird's eye view, from satellite view, I guess I should say, on the north side of a tornado is where you're going to experience ever so slightly weaker winds because those winds are going against the way the tornado is moving. This isn't normally too much of a big deal for storms and or for tornadoes, I should say, and doesn't impact them all too much, but in this event it did. Also, another thing of note, lastly here, is that this system mainly traversed across rural areas of the states that it impacted. We of course saw Omaha, Sioux Falls, St. Paul, Minneapolis, Kansas City, Topeka, Des Moines get impacted, but thankfully not by tornadoes. Speaking of tornadoes, again, three notables here. We have our first one, the southeast of Dorchester to east southeast of Malcolm, Nebraska, EF2. This tornado tracked a relatively long distance of 38.2 kilometers, measured in at a whopping 64 meters wide at its widest. The most significant bits of damage from this tornado is that it tore off the top half of a 100-year-old barn and also moved it slightly off of its foundation. A 100-year-old barn is not going to have your EF4, EF5 rated foundation anchors or anchor bolts or anything like that, of course. And also, a barn and a farm irrigation pivots were upturned by this tornado. Our second notable is the Heartland, Minnesota EF2, with a path length just under 3.5 kilometers long, measured in at 50 meters wide. This tornado managed to hit the town of Heartland directly, causing some relatively severe damage. In fact, some brick structures were badly damaged, some suffered exterior wall collapse in the downtown of Heartland. The southeast of Boyd to northeast of Stanley, Wisconsin EF2 created a path length just under 12 kilometers long and reached an insane 46 meters wide. This tornado was producing minor damage before it directly impacted the town of Stanley. Many homes were damaged and some roofs were lost. Some homes also suffered some exterior wall collapse as well. A large metal trailer was also tossed 230 meters by this tornado. This event, again, mostly Derecho focused, and this event is completely out of the ordinary. This in the bottom left here is just December tornado touchdowns granted from 1950 all the way only up to 2013, but still is by county. We notice here that in the deep south is where we see most tornadic events in December occur, but also notice how low the tornado high density is at 10 compared to April or May, where we may be seeing possibly we will be seeing much higher than that. And if I were to find a county-wide 1950 to 2022, you would definitely see some of those Iowa na- in Iowa now, of course, given this event, and also some in a little bit more in Kentucky and Tennessee, thanks to the December 10th event. This event produced Minnesota's first ever December tornado. Minnesota has never seen a December tornado up until December 15th, 2021. This was also the first moderate risk for the northern plains in December as well. This is the largest tornadic event in Iowa to date. On top of all of this, and we still have a little bit more to go. I mean, just look at all of these tornado warnings down here. And for the largest tornado event to happen in December is very unusual. However, Illinois actually has its largest tornadic event happen in December in 1957. This is also the largest wind event in US history. With those 64 reports by the SPC, this was the largest since I believe it was May 2019, but is the largest ever. And for a December derecho is a little surprising. Last but not least, this is one of the largest 24-hour tornadic events on record. Again, with just 120 in 8 hours, this is around number 4 on the list. We have the 2011 Super in April 2011 with 218 in the course of 24 hours. There is the 148 in 18 hours, or 147 because one in Canada, from the 74 Super outbreak. There was a tornado outbreak in the UK in 1981 that produced, I think it was 109 in under 7 hours, I think. And then this one with 120 in less than 8. This event is quite the odd one. This, again, I really want to hammer home that this is by no means the normal. And it's probably, hopefully, should not happen again for a fair bit. With that being said, that is all that I have for this event. I thank you all so much for watching. I hope that you, of course, learned something, and I hope to see you all in the next video.